You know, this was supposed to go up April Fool's Day, but college plus Mario movies equals insert number of days it's been since April 1st here. Oh well, at least college has been treating me better than Bolt will after this video comes out. Fan projects are an essential part of the gaming ecosystem. They allow fans to show their passion for the source material, try things the official games won't or can't, and possibly be a foot in the gaming industry door. We'll get AM2R creator Milton Gostein what he went on to do, or how a simple Halloween hack got a certain dog a start towards one of the biggest indie success stories in all of gaming, which then inspired an excellent fan game that inspired more like it and got eyes on an artist in their next work, Contract Rush Deluxe. Give that enough time and it'll keep feeding into itself. Like Ouroboros. I just came up with a perfect segue for Omens, and I wasn't even ready to talk about the actual game yet. One step at a time here. No game franchise encompasses the power of fan content like Sonic the Hedgehog. Well, okay, maybe Toho, but I'm still in the tutorial for that series. Be it mods that overhaul their source games, games from scratch that other companies would go ham over, or original works that evolved from fan projects, Sonic sticks a quill in every type of fan work. Sega knows it too, since Christian Whitehead made his retro engine for a fan game before being contracted for a CD remaster. And the mobile ports of 1 and 2 of Simon Tomley. And Sonic Mania. It's been 15 years since that CD remaster, by the way. Fan games are such a large part of the Sonic community, especially when comments about quality are made, that there are people who focus on them over official work. Hell, I have at least one friend who has stopped buying Sonic games entirely. Last we talked about it, he said, "Why should I buy Crossworlds when I can always go back to Ring Racers?" I can see where he comes from. I was like that with Pokemon for a while. But there are a few reasons I don't agree. Reason 1, good games do come, even if inconsistently. Reason 2, they're legally not allowed to turn a profit, so it's a long, grueling labor of love. Sonic Robo Blast 2, which is older than me, is still considered unfinished. I don't have that kind of patience. Reason 3, Sonic Omens. Yeah, for all the praise I give them, fan games can go wrong. Developer infighting, developers hiding skeletons, just plain sucking ass. And in the case of Omens, made in a Sonic mod for Unreal 4 and released across this time frame by Ouroboros Studio, all of the above. While I never interacted with the game myself until now, I still remember hearing about it during that time. It was so graphically polished it seemed official, and that, combined with some early levels, got people excited enough to claim it was gonna smash Frontiers into the ground. And then it was finished. And then the controversy spread. And then the bad girl discovery. With everything new we learned, it just became more and more clear that Ouroboros went about everything wrong, from design to assets, all the way down to the mindset. But oftentimes in cases like these, the hatred for the devs and the surrounding circumstances overshadows the game itself. I want to review Sonic Omens as a game on its own here. If you want an in-depth take on this game's development cycle and the frankly pathetic people behind it, go watch Slope's video on the subject. I'll just give the cliff notes after I either finish the game or rage quit, whichever comes first. Immediately we're off to a bad start. I had to castrate the graphics settings just so the game didn't run like Big in Adventure 1. And I was going to pass it off as my laptop being underpowered, but according to this Reddit post, even the Steam Deck struggles to play this at full capacity. And you probably already noticed, but changing the graphics settings wasn't enough to get OBS off of life support, so credit to Sirloin and Sonic Overtime for the footage. Sonic Omens is set between the events of Unleashed and Colors, seeking to answer the question of why the Chaos Emeralds aren't involved in the plot of future games, and I'm already struggling to not bring up the developer philosophies with that statement because I can smell the salt from all the way across the Pacific Ocean. Eggman's hunting down the emeralds, big surprise, so Sonic and Tails get to hunting him. Tails had to wait for the Hyper Tornado to be ready, deep cut, but okay. And he'll also fat shame Sonic if you go to him instead of leaving right away. Now, the game itself. Omens seeks to merge the speed of the boost era with the more open design of the adventure era, and we see that with stuff like the wall running, actually being able to go in the water, and some sizable shortcuts. Not that you can't do those in a pure boost game. Sonic's framework in this Unreal mod, the Infinity Engine, is primarily based on boost, having the same moveset as Generations. Homing attack, stomp, light dash, and quick step. But his turning and jumps are a little more loose and floaty respectively. It's admirable trying to mix styles, but I feel like there are some flaws that come with it. Let's quickly go over how on both sides. In order to not undermine the adventure elements, you're left dry on boost more often, and sections that don't lend themselves to the boost are prevalent. Areas like these are present in official boost games, especially Colors and Forces, and they act as a pace breaker. If I have a button for the fast, let me do the fast. At the same time, the controls aren't quite up to snuff with adventure. Boost Sonic is fine enough for the kind of level style he has, and Sonic isn't as stiff or weighted as a normal boost game, but he's still not well suited for all the platforming you'd get in adventure. Okay, so while Sonic's framework in this engine inherently clashes with some design elements, I'll give him this. I like what they did with his double jump. Sonic's had one in Colors and Forces, but not only does it feel less heavy here, you get it back after every homing attack, giving Sonic plenty of airtime and making death by bottomless pit less frequent than it would be otherwise. Hey, I'm still not lying. Wellspring, aside from a couple elevator platforms making the pace silver level and some barren design, is a pretty okay starting level. I'd at least call it better than Lost Valley on account of having some mass. Just do turn off the tutorials and the controls if you don't feel like being stopped every 10 seconds. Actually, no, don't. I found myself struggling a lot because I didn't immediately know what to do, especially near the end. Tails catches up with Sonic at the end and they start flying high. Really high. How is Tails still going? Oh, hi, Knuckles. Are you gonna do anything here? Okay. Some gun mechs cut their flight short, leaving Sonic to realize, "Hey, I'm Spider-Man, woo!" By the way, this game treats Chip like he died instead of, you know, going back to sleep as part of the natural cycle of the planet like the ending of Unleashed made clear. Now we're on to the real thick of it. Chow Paradise. Chip's little bracelet malfunction here now lets Sonic grapple off of hooks in the air. It's fine. A bit of a token mechanic, really. It's like the grapple hooks from the Avatar levels in Forces, only downplayed. Honestly though, Chow Paradise is great. Really, I mean it. The merge design aspects work so much better here. It's pretty, there are plenty of paths, it's a great length, Amy contacts Sonic and he pretends to go through a tunnel. Legit, I don't have anything to complain about. Absolute highlight of the game, bar none. Which might sound like a bad omen, but hey, other Sonic games have their best levels early and can still be fun, so let's not lose hope just yet. Did I just call it a bad omen? Son of a bitch! Sonic and Tails reach an abandoned Eggman base, joking about Knuckles and his guard duty, and a half-mangled Egg Dragoon called E0 attacks. It's dragged out a bit, but otherwise is a pretty solid first boss. The patterns are standard affair. He attacks, then slows down for you to get a hit in. It's just that he comes off as a damage sponge with how little Sonic does at a time. Now the song playing is weird. Think Egg Dragoon when the Doom music kicks in. Honestly, I wasn't really absorbing much of the music my first go around. It sort of just existed unless I was repeatedly dying, where it would then become annoying. After some second takes, I came to realize John Rise's work is either mid, derivative, or both, and he's the main composer. Not the only one, mind you, but we'll get to that later. Figuring out where the doctor went, the two head to the Grand Canyon, where we have our next stage, Area 99. A very warm color palette makes me think of oil rigs. Anyway, this level's pretty fun, but I do have a couple snags with it. One, Sonic's lack of a drop shadow is pretty apparent. I never died from not knowing my landing spot in this stage, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't have one. Two, is it just me, or is the difficulty already getting a little tight here? Don't get me wrong, it's the fun sort of tight like mid to late game daytime levels in Sonic Unleashed, but we're only on the third stage. The plane couldn't feasibly fit through Area 99, so Tails has to take another path through the Wild Ridge. Welcome to the Hyper Tornado levels, a crossbreed between Sky Chase from Adventure 1 and the mech levels from both games. Tails has a health bar that can be refilled with rings and green boxes, has bullets and missiles with different cooldown periods, and a boost button that can go on forever, but makes Tails more vulnerable to hazards. Sorta like Dash from The Incredibles on PS2. And just like The Incredibles on PS2, we went from 3 decent to good levels and a solid boss to absolute garbage. This goddamn plane gave me hell my first time playing. And the reason why is because it's too fucking sluggish. Either you're turning at a snail's pace because you can only shift your angle of the camera, you're slowing down to adjust your altitude with the D-pad, which barely works for this layout, or you're boosting and can't turn left or right anymore. If you don't know the camera makes for faster, albeit gradual altitude adjustment, you're gonna crawl through this narrow canyon slower than Sonic Boom on a bad day. Oh, and as an additional kick in the pants, while there's a reticle, there's no lock-on, making enemies a chore to kill. And trying to ignore them is an invitation to restarting the level, especially this first one, because even if you're playing well, it takes forever to hit a checkpoint. I would know. I subjected myself to this crap a second time for notes. I still took 8 minutes. I never played Crash Bandicoot, but I bet my vitriol for this plane is how people feel about the jetpack in the second game. And because I apparently don't have enough to complain about, we immediately get another one. Escaping from Gnarl, this giant snake thing who just showed up after we see Eggman with 2 emeralds. I'm still not having fun, but this level is at least shorter, more straightforward, and doesn't make you kill 4 enemies or pass through awkward revolving doors to open the path. Yeah, I'm still complaining about Wild Ridge. Fucking sue me! Gnarl itself is a pretty simple fight as long as you remember how to aileron roll. What? It's called an aileron roll. For some reason, the last sliver of health it has takes forever to go down, but other than that, little to say. The Eggman chase takes our heroes back to Prison Island, which I'm going to assume has had its toxic waste safely removed in the time since Shadow's game, because aside from the next stage, White Jungle, we don't have any other callback levels and no signs of a military base. Speaking of which, White Jungle is decent. I hesitate to call it good for a few reasons. One, the design is ripped almost wholesale from the original Sonic Adventure 2 level. They just broadened it to accommodate for the boost, replaced the vines with rails and thus making me realize the original is the only Hedgehog stage in SA2 not to have grind rails, and added occasional cheap hazards like spikes or enemies that can attack you in scripted sequences. I mean, I wouldn't say its inclusion was effortless since the original operates in a different engine and style, but it's not super inspired. They didn't even make an original remix of Rhythm and Balance, just used the one for Forces. Yeah, even with the impressive presentation thanks to the framework, this game isn't above cutting corners in places. Second reason, and you better thank me for not showing it, I'm not sure what causes this, I really only saw it in stage select on a couple levels, but the game has grown to graphical glitching aplenty, and White Jungle can get Sonic colors of ultimate levels of bad. Gotta climb up the tree palace next. Fun fact, Bolt, the leader of Ouroboros Studio, really loves Ori in the Blind Forest. You can see it all over the place here, and especially in the music. As for the level itself, oh dear. I've seen this level get a lashing from other creators. I'm pretty mixed, honestly. On one hand, I like how open-ended it is. Legit, the amount of paths you can take to ascend gives Generations levels a run for their money, and that was one of Generations' strong points. In fact, the path I took made it so I never learned about Sonic's bounce being available to use. On the other hand, this is some horribly inorganic design. The exact same floating rectangles for platforms because yes, they're not even that easy to see. A section that's all hopping across dash rings. Yay. You still don't have a drop shadow for any of these. Having to start by going underwater and hitting a switch is the least of our worries. You have a visible air meter, and Sonic controls about the same as he does on land. It's just that the actual climb gets really slow, like it's a Mario Sunshine secret level with the occasional curved dash path. And if you make a bad move, well, thank the deity of your choice that this game has a respawn option. Yeah, we've unfortunately reached the point where the levels start to decay in quality. And I say that with a shaky voice, because the moment Sonic gets the next emerald, we're treated to Waterfall Chase. Oh, this level was so close to being good. The speed is constant, the stakes are high, and you have a great score that blends the atmosphere of the Tree Palace with real tension. So far, it's the most Sonic-like song there is. I have no qualms with calling Danny Burns, aka Techno Cinema, the better composer of the two main ones. Great use of leitmotifs, captures atmosphere well, and he gets the Sonic vibe better with his faster tracks. Actually, as an aside, he's the only person I was familiar with outside of this project. I used his remix of Cyber track from Sonic Advance 3 back when I got hacked. So why can't I call Waterfall Chase good? I'll answer that question when you tell me what killed me there. If you're gonna have the water actually chase me, some better visual feedback as to when it catches up would be nice. Sonic and Tails attempt to leave, now having 4 lovely emeralds, but they create a beacon that knocks them down and gets Shadow on their backs. Why? Beats me if I'm being honest. We backtrack to a training session right before Shadow arrived on the island at Gun Arsenal. Gun Arsenal. Okay, one step at a time here. Shadow controls identically to Sonic, only instead of a rarely used grappling hook, he's got 4 Chaos powers swapped between with the D-pad and used with the left trigger. Spear is active by default, giving Shadow a chargeable lock-on projectile. Control slows down time for as long as the meter's active. Blast sets off a big explosion, but only if you're in midair. Why only in midair? You could use that on the ground in Shadow's game. Would I have been told that if I left the tutorial setting on? Could have saved a minute on Shadow's levels if I knew that. Finally, Dash lets Shadow zip forward or up a few feet. It's the most situational. In fact, I only needed it once the entire game. According to this footage, it makes some platforming easier, but if I can get across without it, I'm not gonna think to use it. So, the arsenal itself. The music reminds me of End of the Line from Undertale Yellow. You, can find Vector here off the beaten path where he sounds like Stitch.
Why are you here?
This level sucks. Even if we ignore that I had to look at a guide to figure out what to do here because the switch initially just looked like part of the scenery, there's too much stop and go, too much risky platforming with bad depth perception, and it's just not fun. We're treated to a cutscene after.
Didn't have enough time. Where's the objective's location?
So, remember when I said I could smell the salt of the developers from across the Pacific Ocean? That wasn't just hyperbole. Bolt and most of the dev team are Russian, and that includes the prominent voice actors. To their credit, most of them try to hide their accents and don't do a terrible job at it.
Think you can track Eggman's location with
Shadow is not one of them. The voice acting is something a lot of people take issue with, but aside from Humanarian doing a poor Kirk Thornton impression with a thick accent, I don't think the voices themselves are that bad. Game guy Nick makes for a pretty convincing Sonic.
Let's go.
Sort of like an in-between of Jason Griffith and Junichi Kanemaru when he speaks English.
Woohoo! Now we're talking! Bring it on!
That's all for today. Tails, check and see how the Chow are doing in the gardens. They might be in trouble.
I Need It Ish has a pretty believable voice for both Tails and
All
Rouge.
right, buddy.
Amy's cameo, while squeaky, still works, and Smochkin as Eggman reminds me of Balena Productions, who's probably my favorite fan Eggman. The voices themselves, Shadow
You
aside,
mean Chris?
aren't the
What are
problem.
you saying, Eggman?
It's the direction.
What does he have to do?
Plenty of times, characters will sound like they're reading right from the script, or they won't give the right inflection. Take this line from the final boss.
Going home. What a great motivation for genocide.
Sonic, why are you so excited about it? Also, in all but one instance of this game, the actors make the 06 and Zero Gravity mistake of calling gun G-U-N. Jump scare every time. Moldy Jungle doesn't elicit much emotion out of me. It plays fine, and the design isn't nearly as dickish as Gun Arsenal, but I don't know. Area's kinda drab looking, the set pieces get rather samey, and it's not exactly short. 6 minutes with optimization. Doesn't sound like much, and for some games it isn't, but that outpaces nearly every relevant level from the adventure games in the Boost era. Suddenly giant boss called the Vortex. It's
Why am I not
fine.
surprised?
You can attack with both homing attacks and chaos spears, and it has plenty of ways to hit you. Arms, more arms, smoke plumes that it shoots from its arms. It'll try to slow down your attacks with a gust roar, but in this first phase, you can ignore it thanks to the vines. Once it hits half health, it'll run and force you to chase after it, and I like this section. Reminds me of Huggin' Molly from South of Midnight. Phase 2 is mostly the same, but ow! Apparently the smoke plumes can pass through the ground. Yeah, this phase can drag, but other than that, it's still tolerable. Shadow reaches Sonic, still crash-landed, and the two start fighting before Tails gives a warning shot to let Sonic escape. Our next level is United Railroad. This level feels like the thrower, but I can't confidently say it is. Starts off good. Really good, in fact. On par with Area 99 almost. But then it gets squandered by little things that build up. First, this section here, which are easier with Chaos Dash or Control, but I didn't use those my first time, so I kept dying over and over because the hooks never lined up for my homing attacks, letting the timer pile up because this game goes the Generations route with death inconsistently. See, when you die in Sonic games, you either lose your points and the timer resets to your last checkpoint, or the timer keeps counting while your score stays the same. Omens does the latter, but sometimes it'll just cut your score down anyway. So, okay, past that horrible segment, then we're back to decency, awkward pseudo 2D section notwithstanding, and then it keeps going. And going.
How long is this gonna go on?
I really want to call this level good. I'm not even that angry about the Portal final test prank they pull on you of placing rings in an insta-kill area, or the fact that the train roof section is just a period of flinching and slapstick if you run out of chaos control. In fact, after some practice, I was able to get through the whole thing, no deaths, only one moment of struggle, but... Well, you know how Unleashed levels are hard, so you train your reflexes to deal with them and it's super fast and rewarding? Or how Generations gives you a similar feeling from finding the fastest path among several choices? United Railroad incorporates both ideas, but the feeling of reward isn't there since A, the reflexes don't give you immediate speed, B, the paths only give you an easy out from obstacles, and C, this level is 8 minutes on a nice day, and it's not fun enough for me to look past that like a good Sonic Heroes level. You can find enjoyment here, but that doesn't change that they poured gravy on a perfectly good bowl of ice cream. I know why it's like this too. It's Shadow's last level. Yeah, Shadow only has 3 levels, they're decent at best, and one of them is easily the worst Hedgehog stage. Honestly, I'm sort of questioning why he's even here. Sonic gets on the train to trail Eggman anyway. Oh yeah, Eggman. Now we're back to Sonic, and we fight him in his Metal Ember head-on. And you know what? It's actually pretty good. We finally get a fun reprieve. Sort of a cross between Nego Wisp Armor and Generations Egg Dragoon. Metal Ember's got plenty of attacks, and you gotta keep on your feet to dodge and catch up when the laser attack disables his controls. You're given plenty of opportunities to grab shields, so while the attacks are constant, you shouldn't be in true danger of death. It goes on for a little long, like Gen's Egg Dragoon, but this was fun. Best moment since Area 99, best boss in the game, and unfortunately better than the rest of the game. Sonic takes Eggman's remaining emeralds, only to get them confiscated by Gun and slapped out of commission by our real villain for this story, the Exiled. Okay, so following this random dream sequence with not Sora here, Eggman treats us to a bloated exposition dump. See, this isn't just an Unleashed Colors interquel. It ties back to Sonic X and the villains of Season 3, the Meta-Rex. No, Cosmo never gets mentioned once. See, not Sora, I mean Chris Thorndike, met and befriended the Exiled, a secret 6th Meta-Rex commander who disagreed with Dark Oak and got cast out, ironically letting him survive those events. The two worked to find a way back to Sonic's world, which put a cap on Chris's life for some reason, but before he died, he worked up Gun's ranks to make them less extreme and more peaceful. Only for it to get reversed when he died 15 years after arriving. The Exile was disappointed by this and chose to try to go home, which means using the Chaos and Master Emerald's power and endangering the world. No, the universe! Oh, and apparently the big-lipped alligator monsters are the Exiled summoned creatures called Omens. Okay, first of all, that's lame as fuck. You're telling me that this villain, who already doesn't have much personality, is risking the universe just to go home? Second of all, Shadow's apparently helping this jackass so that he can make him stop having Maria flashbacks. Even with Shadow Generations in retrospect, I don't see why he'd feel haunted by Maria. Didn't Shadow put his past behind him by this point? Third of all, Chris didn't cap his lifespan traveling to Sonic's world last time, just made him a child again. And are you telling me his experiment could have destroyed the world? Since when was that an actual detail? I'm half serious there, I haven't watched Sonic X since middle school. Fourth of all,
We made it.
why are they trying to get me to care about what happened to Chris Thorndike, one of the most hated characters in all of Sonic?
United again.
So, the motivation is stupid, and the means don't make any sense. The Exiled sucks! And since the story is about trying to stop him, the story sucks! It's not worth this absolute unit of an info dump. Well, it's time to chase the freak down.
Eggman.
Wait. No. Do not put me back in that plane. Do not put me back in that plane. I swear to Waluigi, if I have to play another level like that, I'm gonna shout an overused line of anguish, I'm back in the fucking building again! Why? I am calm. I've taken a breather, had some necessary soothing milkshake, so now, let me patiently explain why this level sucks balls. The plane and its clunky controls are back at the forefront. It takes forever. Insta-kill fire. Insta-kill lasers. It takes forever. The path to proceed at this point is almost guaranteed to be outside your camera view upon reaching here, so good luck finding it. Another big enemy shootout without a lock-on. It takes forever. This section is just the sewage fans from Conker's Bad Fur Day, but even harder to judge the distance on. It takes forever. At the end, we have an open section where you think you have to aileron roll away from the giant bird, but no, that'll get you killed. Instead, you fly from tunnel to tunnel because it can't reach you in them. Great, glad you give me a dodge move. Train me to use it against the previous omen, and then say JK asshole against the last one. By the way, did I mention it takes forever? You will get sick of the color purple by the time you finish up, and unlike last time, we don't even get a reprieve of decency. Nope. Instead, we have a Maria hologram to fight.
What? You. Why?
I'm with you on that one, Shadow. Why? This is out of nowhere, and saying that Gun can craft this hologram doesn't help. You know what else doesn't help? That this boss is an unapologetic bullet hell. You can't toss 17,000 lasers, rings, and spike walls at me and call that a boss. You get like 1, maybe 2 Chaos Blasts to save yourself in a pinch. This is so poorly designed that Eggman's voice actor crashed out playing this on stream. And the strangest part? I somehow won first try with an S rank. Okay. Final stage, Citadel of Lotus. My brain can't decide if it's a grower or a groaner. You're pretty capable of keeping the speed up for half of it, and in that sense it reminds me of a decent daytime level in Unleashed. And I think of Egg Fleet with the generators you destroy right before certain checkpoints. The other half of the time, you make one small mistake and suddenly you're dead. Whether it's by approaching a grapple at just the wrong angle, how was I supposed to know that would happen? Getting jumped by a sudden spike roller and losing all momentum in the segment of using boost bubbles to cross large gaps, getting swarmed by troopers that no discharge, these chasms that I barely feel like I get across even when I'm successful and aren't that hard to time wrong, and inexplicably dying from hazards in the final stretch even with rings. You gotta have some tight reflexes for the end. So I guess I should be thankful I've beaten Eggman Land with an A rank. On second thought, yeah, fuck this one. Now here we are, the Exiled. He destroys the emeralds and kicks Sonic's ass, but between a redeeming blow from Shadow and Chip's bracelet absorbing the chaos energy, don't ask how, Sonic sort of achieves his super form, gives a line for the Razzies,
Consider this your bad omen!
and we begin the final boss. I floundered for several minutes not knowing what to do. The Exiled's attacks, consisting of lasers, sword beams, summoning enemies, and shockwaves, are incredibly tough to dodge, and every time he hits you, your boost meter is down by 70. You can't hit him at all either, so what the hell do you do? Recall the boost bubbles from the last level. What I never noticed using them at first is that they give you 20% to your boost, hence my name. They surround the arena, so you just need to dodge and bash them until you reach a full boost meter, where hitting the light dash button in midair turns you super, gives you 50 rings, and stuns the Exile, leaving him open to a quarter health's worth of homing attacks. Rinse and repeat until he falls to 0. Okay, putting aside how I had no clue what to do at first, it's fine. Except no, it's not, thanks to the goddamn camera. Sometimes it'll stop focusing on the Exiled and won't start until you get to hit him, which is kind of a problem when, oh, I don't know, you lose progress when he hits you. The only workaround for that is to take a hit from the minions and use the iframes as extra time to dodge. Well, eventually you'll reach the second phase. After some lines that again prove it's not the voice, it's the direction, we begin the second and final phase. It's more of the same. Dodge until your meter's full, then press Y for the stun that lets you button mash on him. The difference here is that you're locked into super with the usual 1 ring loss per second and have infinite boost. Now the meter rises on its own, and you lose 10 rings and all the meter's progress if you get hit. I find this phase easier thanks to the infinite boost, but the 10 ring loss on top of losing your meter means 2, or even 1 poorly timed hit before getting to attack at all, means you're dying. The game is at least merciful enough to give you a checkpoint here, but still, it's kinda mean. Well, eventually, Super Sonic will get the drop on the Exiled, giving him a well-deserved good riddance rest in piss. I love how tired he looks on the results screen, that's how I felt by this point. Chip's bracelet breaks, destroying both the Omens and the Emeralds forever. Knuckles, hey, remember him? Yeah, he was in this game for like 12 seconds. Leaves the island, our heroes and Eggman get a moment to reflect, Tails buys some amusement park tickets, that's not how they got there in colors, and Sonic visits Chris's grave. Only to piss on it off screen because who actually cares about Chris Thorndike? Credits roll, and Super Sonic becomes playable in the stage select, where he's an utter game breaker. Faster, jumps higher, can refill his rings with a full meter, meaning you'll never have to worry about running out. I finished Area 99 a full minute faster with Super Active. At this point, you can go back to get red rings or something, but I don't know why you would, because I doubt they do anything. You can use the hedgehog who didn't play the level in the story if it means anything, including Shadow with a glider for the plane levels. No. That was Sonic Omens. Either a golden child or disowned adoptee, depending on who you ask in the Sonic Twitter space. Which side do I fall on at the end of the day?
What do you mean?
I was feeling divided on this game from the moment I turned down the graphics settings to play Wellspring. There's not a single aspect of this game that I don't think is all good or all bad. Well, aside from the story, it's a nothing burger with a bad villain that doesn't line up with events past or future. Some levels and bosses are great, some suck ass, and plenty of them I feel mixed about even after replaying them for notes. The game looks great for something fan-made, but I had to undermine that for it to run properly, and a lot of it can be traced to the engine. I can easily tell which music is good and what just exists by looking at the composers. Most of the voice acting is either good or bad purely from direction, and then Shadow and Vector are there. Funny how they're voiced by the same guy. I mean, I don't think the game is terribly horrible. I'd play it over plenty of Sonic's easy targets like 06 or Forces, but those aren't exactly high bars to jump over. There's some good, plenty of bad. Sort of rounds out to being a slightly unsavory mixed bag. But hey, that can't be too harsh, right? It's a free fan game made for the craft. The fact that it came out at all puts it above plenty of fan games, so it's a feat to be respected. Which is what I would say if Ouroboros Studio wasn't made up of thin-skinned, petty, greedy, self-aggrandizing assholes. Like I said before, I wanted to primarily focus on the end product here, but in case the intro and my occasional hints didn't tell you enough, the devs aren't worth your support. Let's boost through the reasons why. Go! Took every opportunity they could to monetize their fan project, be it game-jolt ads, constant donation links with one in the game itself, and in-progress goals being paywalled, placing the community at risk of turning Sega into Nintendo. Tried to shut people up when getting criticized for literally anything. SomecallmeJohnny was a detractor and pulled a 180 upon being hired as the voice of Eggman, only to crash out while fighting Maria. The team laughed at him for struggling at their own poorly made boss. Why does Shadow's VA suck? Their original hire needed a few days to record lines because they were ordering a new mic. Yeah, instead of waiting a couple days, the team said screw you and had Humanarian take over. Here's how Shadow could have sounded.
Enemies incoming. You can't let the data get destroyed.
A little high, but not too far from David Humphrey, who will always be peak Shadow. Humanarian admitted that the team finished the game out of spite towards haters instead of love for the source material. Another team member said there hasn't been a good Sonic game since 1998, which means two things. The entire project was always made out of spite, and they're blatant liars. If we didn't have a good game since Adventure 1, why was the team originally named after Sonic Mania? And why focus on post-Adventure 1 details in the game itself? Or make it a boost game? Willy Loman can hear the spite! John Rise is so derivative that for Area 99, he was accused of plagiarizing oil rig race from Cars 2 on 3DS. Techno Cinema got its final boss compositions cut without being told at first because they didn't sound like Bury the Light from Devil May Cry 5. Now, I get that things can be scrapped sometimes, and I like the replacement, Way to the World. It's the only John Rise song I like, even if it's derivative, and it's impressive they got Bentley Jones of So Much More and Dreams of an Absolution fame on board for it, but to scrap excellent, climactic, more fitting pieces that Techno put all his soul into out of blatant self-interest, this is biggering from the Lorax all over again, and we could have had Bentley singing to the masterpiece that is the Exiled Phase 2. The Bad Girl Discovery. I'm not elaborating any further, because I like my fans. If you know, you know. That's 106 seconds of baggage, and I was speed talking. All of that to say, this was supposed to be an April Fool's video. The average person has no excuse to give this roulette wheel of quality the time of day when the team doesn't deserve it. But on the bright side, it doesn't get the time of day anymore. No one cares about Omens in 2026. I'm probably the first to talk about it in a while. Once it was clear the game was mostly bad and the devs were even worse, people's eyes shifted back to Frontiers. And Frontiers didn't suck royally, I think, never played. So while the franchise regained its footing, better, more ethical fan games served as passion-driven auxiliary support like they always were, while Ouroboros and their bastard fell into obscurity. So I won on two fronts here. I found some genuine fun, and got to rightfully trash dipshits. Sonic Omens, I leave you with an altered quote from a fan game that is everything you're not.
Most of the time you were insufferable, but when you gave in to your true competent urges, that was the best part.
I'm getting another milkshake. Hopefully they'll have mint this time.